One bright sun's morning, a woodcutter set out from his house on the edge of the forest. In the house, a little girl watched her mother preparing food that she had packed carefully into a basket. The little girl was called Little Red Riding Hood, and she always wore a red cape with a hood that her mother had made for her. When the basket was finished, Little Red Riding Hood's mother called her and said,
"Here's a basket of freshly baked cakes and bread, which I want you to take to your grandmother, who has not been well. Take care as you go through the wood. Stick to the path and don't stop to talk to strangers on the way. And when you see grandmother, hurry back and let me know how she is."
Yes, Mama.
She began to walk through the wood, where she had been many times with her father, the woodcutter. The birds and small animals that lived in the wood followed her, but they were not afraid of her. After a while, she stopped to pick some flowers, thinking they would be a nice present for her grandmother. Then she saw some prettier flowers among the trees, away from the forest path. She became so excited about finding prettier flowers that she forgot her mother's advice to stick to the path, and she didn't even notice when all the little animals scurried away. So when a shadow fell across her path, she was surprised to see a tall stranger standing next to her.
"Good morning, my child."
He was a big, bad wolf, but Little Red Riding Hood didn't know this, and answered politely,
Good morning, sir.
Tell me, my dear, where are you off to on this fine day?
I'm off to visit my grandmother who lives in the woods. But I fear I have lost my way.
And what do you have in your basket?
Oh, freshly baked cakes and bread for grandmother.
And your grandmother, does she live alone?
Oh yes, quite alone.
The wolf looked at the basket and licked his lips, for he was very hungry. But he thought, if I could wait a while, I might make an even better meal.
Well now, allow me to lead you back to the path so you can continue on your way.
Thank you.
Now, does your grandmother live far from here?
Not very far. In the little cottage by the mill, and she keeps the door unlatched so I can easily enter.
Oh, splendid, splendid. Off you go then. Give my best wishes to your grandmother, and I hope she feels better.
Thank you kindly.
Red Riding Hood waved goodbye as she went down the path towards her grandmother's. Now the wicked wolf knew the path well, and ran off using a shortcut that brought him to the cottage well before Red Riding Hood. He peered into the window to see if the old woman was really alone, and then he knocked on the door.
Who's there?
It is me, Red Riding Hood, with some food from Mama.
Lift up the latch and come in, my dear.
The wolf opened the door and leapt towards the bed. The old lady was so frightened she fainted right away. The wolf was about to eat, but then his sharp ears picked up Red Riding Hood approaching through the woods. So he quickly bundled the old lady into the closet, dressed in her nightgown, and jumped into bed. Red Riding Hood got to the cottage and knocked on the door.
Who is there?
It's Red Riding Hood with some food from Mama.
Lift up the latch and come in.
Red Riding Hood opened the door and peered in. It wasn't very light in the cottage, but she could see the old lady's nightcap lying on the pillow.
I hope you're feeling better.
The wolf did not answer, but his eyes gleamed.
Why? What big eyes you have.
All the better to see you with, my dear.
What big ears you have, Grandmother.
All the better to hear you with.
Then the blanket slipped down to show his big snout.
My goodness, what big teeth you have.
all the better to eat you with!
Suddenly, the door burst open and there stood the woodcutter with his axe. The wolf glared at the woodcutter, but he knew he stood no chance against the axe. So he leapt through the window, and he ran for his life, never to be seen again. Red Riding Hood was so frightened, she was crying and trembling. Her father put down his axe to comfort her, and then he heard a noise from the closet. So he opened the door, and there was the poor, frightened grandmother. After they comforted her and put her back into bed with the freshly baked cakes, she felt much better. Then Red Riding Hood and her father made their way home safely. From that day on, Red Riding Hood made sure not to stray from the path and learned to be on her guard with smooth-talking strangers.